Welcome back to the show, everybody, for another deep dive.
Always happy to be here.
Today, we're diving into the world of corporate social responsibility.
Oh, yeah.
You know, all those things that companies are doing
Right.
to try to be, good corporate citizens
Yeah.
and do good in the world beyond just making a profit.
Mm-hmm.
But the thing that we're really going to be focusing on today is this whole problem of CSR washing.
Right.
So the idea is that companies are trying to do good,
Mm-hmm.
and they're trying to really make a difference in the world.
Yeah.
But then there's this accusation that they're really just trying to look good,
Right.
and
Yeah.
it's not really authentic.
Yeah.
So we really want to dig into that.
Mm.
We found this fascinating article titled Punishing the Good: How to Minimize an Unfair CSR Washing Label.
Interesting.
So this is really going to be our guide
Oh,
for today,
cool.
to try to figure out how companies who are genuinely trying to make a difference
Mm-hmm.
can kind of thread that needle and avoid being unfairly labeled as CSR washers.
You know, it's interesting because when I think about this topic,
Yeah.
what really jumps out at me is it gets to the heart of this trust issue
Yeah.
between companies and consumers.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Like I was thinking about, a great example of this is that lawsuit against Taco Bell
Oh,
a
yeah.
few years back
Yeah.
where they were accused of their meat not even being real meat.
Yeah.
And it turned out to be totally false.
Mm-hmm.
But
Yeah.
it cost them millions of dollars and,
Absolutely.
lost revenue and legal fees
Totally.
and damage to their brand.
Reputation is everything.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So it's a good reminder of how much is at stake
Mm-hmm.
when it comes to a company being labeled as doing something wrong,
Right.
even if they're not.
Exactly.
So let's kind of take a step back, and I'd
Mhm.
love to hear your take on this.
Okay.
What is CSR washing, and how is it different from genuine CSR?
That's a great question.
Yeah.
So let's start with CSR, which is corporate social responsibility.
Mm-hmm.
And this is basically the idea that companies should integrate social and environmental concerns
Mm.
into their business operations.
Yeah.
It's about thinking about the impact of their decisions,
Mhm.
not just on their bottom line, but on the world around them.
Okay, so it's about their supply chains,
Exactly.
how they treat their employees,
Absolutely.
all of that.
Okay.
Now, CSR washing, on the other hand,
Mm-hmm.
that's where things get a little murky.
Okay.
It's essentially using flashy marketing
Mm-hmm.
and PR
Mm-hmm.
to create the perception
Uh-huh.
that a company is socially responsible
Okay.
without actually having the substance to back it up.
Got it. So it's basically like putting lipstick on a pig,
You got it.
right? It's still a pig.
It's all about appearances,
Appearances.
not about real change.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think a really good example of that is this whole thing with Nestle.
Oh, yeah?
You know, they've been accused of child labor.
In their cocoa supply chains.
Right.
But then at the same time,
Mm-hmm.
they talk about how much they're investing in
Mhm.
education for children in cocoa communities.
Right. So it's like, which one is it?
Yeah, it's such a mixed message.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And you see that a lot these days. That's
Yeah.
why so many people are skeptical
Really.
about CSR claims.
Uh-huh.
You have things like woke washing,
Mhm.
where companies try to jump on like social justice bandwagons
Right.
without any real commitment.
Totally. I've definitely rolled my eyes at a couple of those myself.
Yeah.
So how can companies actually walk the walk and not just talk the talk?
That's the million-dollar question, right?
Yeah.
And that's where this article comes in.
Okay.
They outline some really interesting strategies
Mm.
for companies to demonstrate their authenticity
Uh-huh.
and build trust with consumers.
Okay, so let's dig into those.
Absolutely.
The first one that they talk about is integrate CSR into core activities. That's a big one.
Yeah. So it's not just about, a one-off charity event
Right.
or slapping a sustainable label on a product.
Exactly. It has to be more than a PR stunt.
So what does that actually look like in practice?
Well, think about it like this.
Okay.
It's about weaving CSR into the very fabric of the company.
Mm-hmm.
It's recurring initiatives,
Mm-hmm.
embedding social and environmental considerations
Yeah.
into every decision-making process,
Mm-hmm.
even involving external stakeholders.
Okay.
It's about making it part of the DNA of the business.
Got it.
Yeah.
And they actually highlight Intel as a company that's doing this well.
They're a great example.
And I think what I really like about what they do
Mm-hmm.
is how they empower
Yeah.
their employees at all levels
Right.
to contribute to these CSR initiatives.
Yeah. It creates a ripple effect
Yeah. And
throughout the organization.
I feel like it's got to be so much more powerful
Mhm.
than just like top-down mandates.
Absolutely. Okay, so what's the next strategy?
So the next one builds on that idea of employee empowerment.
Okay.
It's about adopting a bottom-up approach to CSR.
So it's not just like the executives deciding
Sure, sec.
what the social responsibility should be.
It's about engaging employees at every level,
Mm.
giving them a sense of ownership,
Mm-hmm.
and allowing them to really contribute.
Right. So if employees are actually passionate about this,
You totally
it's
are.
going to be so much more authentic
Way more
than
for sure.
just some marketing campaign.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. What's the next one?
The third recommendation focuses on accountability.
Okay.
It's about developing an integrative performance management CSR system.
So basically baking CSR goals
Exactly.
into how the company measures success.
Right into their performance evaluations,
Mhm.
into how they reward employees.
Okay. So it's not just saying we care about sustainability.
Right.
It's actually like holding people accountable
Yeah, making it a core part of how the business operates.
for contributing to those goals.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
What's the final strategy?
The last one is all about communication,
Okay.
which might seem obvious,
Mm-hmm.
but it's often where companies trip up.
Okay.
It's about developing an effective CSR communication strategy. And it really boils down to this
Yeah.
walking the talk.
Right. Actions speak louder than words.
Exactly.
And I think
Yeah.
a really good example
Mm-hmm.
of what not to do
Mm-hmm.
is that whole thing with BP
Oh, yeah.
and the oil spill,
Right.
where they had just rebranded
Mm-hmm.
with this, sunflower logo
Yeah, all about being green.
to emphasize their environmental commitment.
Right.
And then
And then boom.
the oil spill happened.
Major oil spill.
Like, how do you come back from that?
It's a classic example of how misaligned actions
Mm, that-
can completely undermine
Right.
your CSR efforts.
And I think the thing is,
Yeah. Uh-huh.
consumers are smart.
They are.
They can see through that
Absolutely.
kind of BS.
Yeah.
So I think it is really important to
Yours,
be
yours.
authentic.
Transparency is key.
Yeah.
And honesty.
Okay, so we've talked about all these great strategies,
Mm-hmm.
but are there any potential downsides?
That's a great question and something we should definitely explore.
Because it can't be all sunshine and roses,
Not always.
right?
There are definitely some challenges and potential pitfalls.
Okay, well, we'll dig into those
Sounds good.
when we come back.
Looking forward to it.
So we were talking about some potential downsides
Yeah. Yeah.
to all these great CSR strategies.
Yeah.
Like, what could possibly go wrong?
Well, I think one thing to remember is that
Mm.
implementing all of these strategies takes a lot of resources.
Right.
It takes dedicated budgets,
Mm-hmm.
teams,
Okay.
training programs,
Yeah.
and not every company, especially smaller ones,
Mm.
might have the capacity to fully commit to all of that.
Right. So it's like they have all the best intentions,
Right. So,
but they don't have the resources to really make it happen.
yeah. And that can lead to accusations of CSR washing.
Right.
Even if they're genuinely trying.
Even if they're trying.
Yeah.
So what can they do in that situation?
I think transparency is really crucial.
Okay.
Being open about the challenges
Mm-hmm.
and limitations
Okay.
and focusing on making progress,
Yeah.
even if it's incremental.
So rather than trying to do everything perfectly,
Exactly.
just be honest about where you're at.
Yeah, and be honest about the journey.
Yeah.
And another big challenge is measuring the actual impact
Oh, that's it.
of these CSR initiatives.
Yeah.
It's not as simple as just,
Right.
tracking profits.
How do you even measure that?
Right. How do you quantify social and environmental good?
Yeah.
It's tough.
It seems so subjective.
It can be really tricky.
Okay.
You're dealing with a lot of intangible factors.
Right.
So coming up with clear metrics
Yeah.
can be a real challenge.
So while we want companies to be accountable,
Right.
we also need to acknowledge the difficulty
Absolutely.
of actually measuring the impact.
Yeah, there's a risk of getting so caught up
Uh-huh.
in chasing these quantifiable results
Okay.
that you lose sight
Mm-hmm.
of the bigger picture.
Of actually doing good.
Exactly. So
Yeah.
again, transparency is key.
Mm-hmm.
Being upfront about the challenges
Okay.
of measuring impact
Right.
and focusing on communicating your efforts and your intentions clearly.
So it really all comes back to
Yeah.
walking the walk and
Mhm.
being honest about what that looks like.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And even though measuring impact is tough,
Yeah.
there are tools and frameworks
Like-
that can help.
Like what?
The article mentions third-party assessments.
Oh, so like bringing in an outside expert
Exactly.
to evaluate.
Evaluate the company's CSR effort.
Okay, so that adds kind of like an extra layer.
Does objectivity,
Mhm.
helps companies identify areas for improvement.
But even with a third party,
Yeah.
there's got to be challenges with that too, right?
Of course, there's no perfect solution.
Okay.
There's a growing number of assessment options out there, and choosing the right one
Right.
for a company's specific values and goals
Okay.
is really important.
So it's helpful,
Yeah.
but not a cure-all.
Not a silver bullet.
Yeah.
But it does highlight
Mm-hmm.
the need for this holistic approach to CSR.
Okay.
You need internal commitment,
Mm-hmm.
external validation, and transparent communication.
All working together.
Exactly.
It seems so complicated.
It can be.
Like, how are companies supposed to navigate all of this?
Well, the key thing to remember is that authentic CSR
Mm-hmm.
is about continuous improvement.
Mm-hmm.
It's a commitment to learning and adapting.
So recognizing that you're not going to be perfect
Right.
right away.
It's a journey,
Yeah.
not a destination.
Okay, so for our listener out there
Yeah.
who's tried to make sense of all of this, what's the big takeaway?
I think it's about understanding that CSR is important,
Mm-hmm.
but it's also constantly evolving.
Okay.
Both companies and consumers
Mm-hmm.
need to be critical thinkers,
Mm-hmm.
question assumptions,
Yeah.
look beyond the superficial claims.
Be a savvy CSR detective.
Exactly.
All right, so before we wrap things up,
Mm-hmm.
I want to kind of turn the tables here
Okay.
and put the question to our listener.
All right.
Based on everything we've talked about today,
Mm-hmm.
which companies or industries do you think are doing CSR well?
Hmm.
And which ones are maybe raising some red flags?
Yeah, it's a good question. You know, it really makes you think
Mhm.
about what you're actually seeing
Mhm.
versus what they're saying.
And like, what are the things that we should be looking for?
Yeah, are their actions actually matching their words?
Hmm.
What's their track record been?
Right.
Are they transparent about their supply chains, about their labor practices?
Like how they treat their employees.
all those things matter.
Mm-hmm.
And how do they respond to criticism?
Yeah.
Are they engaging with stakeholders?
Do they actually,
Yeah.
address those concerns?
Are they open to feedback? And are
Mhm.
they willing to change
Yeah.
based on that feedback?
So it really is like
It is.
putting on your detective hat
Yeah.
and being a little bit skeptical.
Be a critical consumer,
Mm-hmm.
but also remember
Yeah.
that no company is perfect.
Right.
Right. Authentic CSR is a journey
It's a process.
in a destination.
Yeah, and I think that's a really important thing
it is.
to keep in mind. Like,
Yeah.
we're all learning and growing.
Absolutely.
And hopefully companies are too.
And we as consumers have a role to play in that.
Oh.
We can support companies that are doing good work.
Right. Vote with our dollars.
Exactly. And we can hold them accountable
Mm-hmm.
when they fall short.
Yeah. Yeah.
We can use our voices to advocate for change.
I mean, I think that's really what it comes down to.
It does.
Is that, we all have a part to play
Elective effort,
in making the world a better place.
for sure.
So that's it for today's deep dive.
It's been a good one.
We've explored the world of CSR and CSR washing,
A lot to unpack.
dug into those strategies
Mm-hmm.
for authentic social impact.
There's some great tips in there.
And hopefully you're walking away
Yeah.
feeling a little bit more empowered to be a conscious consumer.
Absolutely.
So keep exploring this topic.
Yeah.
Do your own research.
Just stay curious.
Share your thoughts.
Mm-hmm.
And let's keep the conversation going.
Thanks for listening, everybody.
Thanks for joining us